there are so many more opportunities available than you think that you might be stopping yourself from, that it does not hurt at all to put yourself out there. The only thing it hurts is your ego if you don't make it, and then that's nothing.
The coolest thing about meeting you is that your whole family's here.
Oh, well.
What has it been like to have your family support you doing something in the arts?
I mean, I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, is where I got my degree, and my parents paid for the first 2 years of that, and I would absolutely not have gone to college at all without that at first. Like, I ended up having to get loans to pay for the second 2 years, but it was just kind of out of obligation to see it through almost, like I would have never taken that step without my support, or for support from my family there. And it's been great. I grew up drawing all day, every day, and sometimes was told not to, in church or in school or whatever like that. But it's how do you get anywhere without your parents? I don't know. But it's been great. They've seen me through the whole way.
You started as a Sonic fan, and how did that come about? Like, what about the character made you say that's him for me?
The first time I saw Sonic, it must have been in a commercial or something. It was 91, so I would have been 7. But I remember the first time playing Sonic was where it clicked for me. And back in the day, you used to rent consoles from Blockbuster. Rent games from Blockbuster too, but you could also rent consoles. And back then, a Genesis new out of the box was $200. We weren't going to pay that, but you can for 15 or whatever, you can take it home for 3 nights. And my brother rented a Genesis and Sonic 1, and we played it straight all weekend, and that was just it. I remember the very first drawing I did, and I wish I had kept it now in retrospect. It would have been really nice to look back, but at the time I thought it was garbage, so I threw it away. But I remember drawing this giant Sonic. It was on this big 11 by 17 piece of paper, and it was, as good as a 7-year-old can do, I guess, but I was just in love with the character, and I couldn't even do anything. I was so bad at it. I don't think we ever got past Marble Zone, even. For 3 days we just played Green Hill and Marble and never get any further. But he was just such a cool, cute character that immediately he clicked with me.
What was it about playing that game that got you into not just animation but just fueling your creative side?
So I think where Sonic stands apart from Mario for me and other kind of game mascots of the time is Mario is more of a character that, in the true fashion of a mascot, he can fit any mold. He's almost, this sounds harsher than I mean it, but he's almost devoid of personality in a way, much in the way that like a Ronald McDonald or a Mickey Mouse is. Like Mickey Mouse has a personality, a Ronald McDonald has a personality, but they're made in such a way that they can, say, be put in a cart or play tennis or do anything, because that's how versatile they are. Sonic was a mascot, or is and was a mascot, that has those qualities, but has a distinct personality of his own. You can't necessarily do all the things with Sonic that you can with Mario, because it breaks the character to put him in strange positions. You can't put Sonic in a lab coat and have him toss vitamins down at germs. It just doesn't really work as well as it does with a Mario. So for Sonic, there was something deeper there, and in his games I saw like a hidden story in that adventure that I didn't quite see in other games like that. So it fuels you thinking up what happened in Spring Yard Zone, where it's the background looks like the normal human cityscape behind this weird pinball-esque world that you're running in the foreground. There's kind of layers of visual storytelling happening in Sonic that it's like it taunts you to think up more things with him.
After working with Sonic all these years, being an animator, being an artist, and now we have the movie that has come out, how does it feel like to see this long journey of this character finally make it to the silver screen and everybody now loves the character like you do?
I went to go see it in theaters on opening night, and when on the way to the theater, walking up to it, there were kids running around in Sonic hats and Sonic shirts, Sonic backpacks, just like kids head to toe in Sonic stuff. And I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that. Like, like even when I was a kid, like you'd get the occasional bit of Sonic merch around. Like even when Sonic was everywhere, he was. He's always maybe a little bit of a second ringer to some other bigger mascots. But now, like seeing Sonic on the world stage, being and everyone loving him, it's all I ever wanted from being involved in Sonic is to have people like this character as much as I do, and being a part of that in any fashion it means the world to me, because when you love something, all you want to do is share it with people, right? And so helping people see that it may be written off Sonic for a little while, helping them see that there's still so much potential in him for great stories and great action and great comedy. It's all I could ever want.
What is some of the process that you go into, like as an artist? How do you start? Because some people, when they look at art, they're like, "Oh, he just drew this," but you have to literally create something in your mind and translate that to whether it's paper, computer. What is that process like for you?
It's a little bit different for Sonic than it is for original stories. I think for Sonic, as much as it seems from the outside maybe, and also being called like director on the shorts that we do for YouTube and stuff, Sonic is never wholly my character. So whenever I start to think of a concept for Sonic, the first thing I have to think of is, what can I get away with? For the past 4 years or so, I've been working directly in-house at Sega on their shorts, and the stories that we've told have not necessarily always been the stories that I wanted from the outset, because it's a collaborative process of, this is what I want to see, but what does Sega want the world to see? So sometimes we'll walk stuff back, sometimes we'll push stuff forward. It's a matter of taking something that has existed for almost 30 years now and trying to do something original enough to keep people invested, but also not so different that they don't recognize him. So for me, it's always, what is the untapped potential of this character? What do I want to see him go do? Do I want to see him grow in a way? Do I want to see his friends grow in a way? And then I put that on the table and talk it through with the people that own Sonic, and then we together come up with a story that fits both of our needs.
One person in the room believes that one of the games you worked on probably is the best Sonic game ever. We're not going to mention his name. But what is it like to work on a video game and then you've worked on it for so long because it's in development, you're doing these different things, and then it finally comes out, and then people get to enjoy your work. What is that like?
Well, so when I was doing directing the intro animation for Sonic Mania, I hadn't even played the game yet. I played the Green Hill demo that they had at the anniversary party, and that was it. So this was months before the game came out, and trying to keep that a secret was a task in and of itself, really, because this is the first time Sega had done animation in-house, I think ever, actually. It's always been outsourced to a different studio, wholesale. They'll write up a contract, and then the studio will do the entire process with just doing check-ins for Sega. This is the first time that they brought an animator director directly into the office and worked directly with Sonic Team to make 2D animation for a Sonic thing ever. And it was also, on top of that, the first time there had been any official 2D Sonic animation since, I want to say, whenever Sonic Riders came out, which was, I want to say 2006, 7? It had been a long time since there had been any official 2D Sonic animation come out of Sega. And that last time, it was done by Studio 4C. Or Production IG. One of the best animating houses in Japan made the last intro for Sonic Riders. It was an incredible feat. It was beautiful. It still holds up to this day. And so to be the follow-up to that sucks a little bit because you're walking in the still, the footsteps of people that you admire, but at the same time, it's like an incredible opportunity to try and bring your absolute best. And I had a great bunch of collaborators that helped me pull that off. And waiting for that hammer to drop was rough. But the day that it finally came out and everyone went nuts, it was like no feeling out there. I was at Nickelodeon the day on a different job the day it came out, and immediately like my phone's blowing up. It's like, oh, maybe some Twitter's going nuts. Like, dude, Sonic's back. It was great. Yeah.
Were one of the texts or tweets from your parents, and were you able to say, "Ha"?
Well, they knew about it the whole time already, so like anyone that I was close with knew it was coming. Like I was working on Invader Zim at the time on Nickelodeon. Everyone on Zim knew it was coming. It was what was really fun and exciting was people that I hadn't talked to in years, like since college or even since high school and back then, say that they saw my name on the YouTube posting or something like that, and people that maybe would have never reached out again, and I wouldn't have never reached out to them as well. But to have them come back and say that they like this thing was really nice.
Did you see a lot of people who had gotten out of playing Sonic and come back, and then they were a newfound appreciation for the character?
I think Sonic Mania, on the whole, did that for a lot of people. Sonic has been kind of split as of late between fans of the older stuff and the newer stuff. What I've always loved about Sonic is just how much the character and his games and everything about him changes over time. Like that is what has always kept me hooked on Sonic, where other franchises, your Marios per se, like I'll always pick up a Mario game because I know it's guaranteed to be a quality game. Like I'm always going to have a good time, but it's an expected good time. Where Sonic, I never know what's going to be thrown at me with that. And that has always been the more interesting option to me. And for some people, they don't like that. And what they like is they like one particular era of Sonic, either the classic era, the Dreamcast era, the modern era. There's fans of all these different play styles and different takes on the character, and they diverged in some ways. And for Sonic Mania, that was the first chance for the classic fans that were with them from the start to be brought back in, and I think it reignited a lot of people's feelings that they've had for the franchise that they haven't felt in a long time. And it's great to see them being excited about Sonic again. Again, for me, I never stopped caring because the change is what kept me interested. But for people that have left them behind to have something that they can enjoy again, again, it's the greatest reward of working on a franchise like this is to see people like something that you like again.
One of the things you mentioned is following in the footsteps of people who like Production IG. Mm-hmm. We've seen their work. Everybody's like, wow. Mm. You also worked on Invader Zim and pretty much brought it back for, I would say, a whole new generation of fans. What was it like working on that? Was it the same feeling as coming behind Production IG?
So when I first moved to LA, I met Jonan through our mutual friend, Breen Burns. When I first moved to LA, the first storyboarding job I had was on a show called Bravest Warriors, which was on YouTube. The director of that show, Breen, was friends with Jonan, and he introduced us to each other when Jonan was getting a pilot together at Disney. It was a safe, cute pilot. It was really, really charming. But it didn't happen. But through that process, we had a great time working together. It's rare to find someone that you mesh on a working relationship as well as me and Jonan do. Like this, that pilot that we storyboarded together, we didn't have an office. It was just a pilot, so we would just go to Jonan's loft. It was me, Jonan, and our friend Jenny Goldberg, who was the art director for it. And it was just us sitting in that loft till 5 a.m., making each other laugh and putting that in the board and just making it work. And I was busy on Sonic stuff, and I was busy trying to get my own graphic novel out. But as soon as Jonan called me and said, do you want to do this Zim thing? I just drop it. Like the opportunity to enjoy work as much as I enjoy working with Jonan is like an opportunity you don't pass up. So getting to go back in there with him and our new crew on that Zim special was so much fun. It's like up until I'd say the movie, the most fun I'd ever had on a job. Is like it barely felt like work sometimes, really. And I think that shows because the special is so fun to watch. There's all the best productions I've ever worked on have had the simple philosophy of the best idea wins. It's like, doesn't matter who it comes from. Doesn't matter if the lady cleaning the sink has a great joke. If it's great, it makes it in, you know. And Zim was that way, where anybody that had an idea, if a producer had an idea, it's like you pitch it, if it makes people laugh, it stays. It doesn't, like, worry about the censors and you worry about standards and practices later. It's like, if it makes people laugh, put it in the board and see if it flies. And yeah, it was just fun the entire way through.
I know you got to eat, so I know you take jobs because you have to do this thing. But there's something that you worked on creatively that's just for you, that you're like, one day I want to see this come to fruition. Something that's yours, where you're not working on somebody else's character.
Well, I have a graphic novel series, Diesel. That is an idea that the genesis of which I've had since college. I came up with the concept and the characters back then. And I worked together with Boom Studios to make a graphic novel of it, and it's been on indefinite hold while the Sonic stuff has been happening, and the Zim stuff happened. It's one thing after another. It's very hard to make a living making comic books, period. Like, unless you have a breakout hit, it doesn't happen. And especially not if you're living in LA. You know, like, you have to pay higher rent for the opportunity to be around where the opportunities are in LA, and that's what I do, but it makes the life of a comic maker almost impossible. So Diesel has been on the back burner while I've been making money, and it's something that I hopefully now will get the opportunity to go back in and revisit. But it's not something that I need to have seen made into a motion picture or made into a TV series to get satisfaction out of. I think comics are their own thing, and they deserve to be judged on the merit of their own thing. You know, there's my favorite comic in the world is Jeff Smith's Bone, which is, it was the first original comic I ever picked up on a newsstand. I read the Sonic comic, and I would read like Ren and Stimpy and like licensed stuff like that. But one day while going to get my Sonic comic, Bone #2 was on the newsstand. I was like, oh, this is cool. And I picked it up, and it's like nothing I'd ever seen before. It was this marriage of like a Roger Rabbit-esque marriage of cartoony characters and realistic humans in a fantasy environment. And it just immediately piqued my interest, and it's been my favorite comic ever since. And it's something that you could make it, they are making a TV show out of it, you know, but like you could adapt into other mediums, but it never needed to be anything other than a comic to be great. And so for Diesel, that is where my heart lies as well, is should someone ever adapt it, so be it. But I want it to be a great graphic novel. And
You just wanted to get it out there.
yeah, like just have the idea done so people can read it, people can love the characters, people can love the world, and have the story be finished is my current goal, really.
When you're not working, and you mentioned comics, I'm a huge comic fan. I'm trying to convert somebody else to read more of them. But when you go to a store, what do you pick up? What are you kind of vibing out to or listening to or reading?
You know, it's been so long since I've picked up something that I didn't know who made it. Like, and that's kind of the way it does. Like, the people that I came up with are now the people that make everything. Nimona by like Noel Stevens. She's
from here.
She came up actually in a talk the other day. But Chris Hastings has been doing a lot of great stuff. I'll go out and pick up stuff by my friends, but I haven't made a new discovery on the comics landscape in a little bit. Manga has been my go-to for a while, and I would like to see us kind of start approaching their distribution method, because it's so easy to find new manga by virtue of the compilation system that they do with like the Shonen Jump anthology thing. It's so easy to find new series because you get that magazine and they'll tell you what's good, you know. By virtue of being in Shonen Jump, you're almost guaranteed to be a good series, so you'll pick it up, and those will be the series that take off. So occasionally I'll go into like a Kinokuniya, which is I don't know if you have them down here. It's a bookstore, but they specialize in manga and stuff like that, and I'll just kind of browse around. That's how I found My Hero Academia, which now everyone else has found, so it's old news. But yeah, my headspace for the past few years has been in Japan land, I think. So.
What's next for you?
That I can talk about.
You're in a high right now. Like it's got to be great to be Tyson.
I cannot complain. I'm in a very lucky position where I haven't had to look for work almost ever. Even before most people knew who I was, I've been very, very lucky to have people come to me with ideas that they think I'd be a good fit for. And it's still happening, and that's kind of the way I like to play it, where I like the idea that someone came to me first because then I can work at meeting their expectations. And that's like, whenever I get a job, the only two things I care about at the end of it are, did I learn something, and did I make these people happy that they chose me instead of someone else? So coming in on a high expectation kind of fuels me a little bit. It makes me think that they see something to be tapped there, and it makes me want to impress them as well. As for what's next, gonna hopefully be getting back into Diesel as soon as possible, but I am directing a few other shorts at the time that I can't talk about, and I've also been consulting on a few other features that I can't talk about as well. But a lot of stuff that will hopefully lead me back to telling original stuff again.
Cool. You started out talking about college and how your family really did support you, and you wouldn't have been able to do it. What do you have to say out there to somebody who wants to get into animation, who wants to be a creator, wants to be an artist? What would you, not necessarily steps to this is what you need to do, what would you, coming from you, a vote of inspiration would mean a lot. So what would you say to that up and coming artist?
Yeah, not everyone has the same privileges, and that is something that it can't be understated. I am in LA now because I was able to move out there, right? And I was able to be amongst the scene. And if I wasn't in LA, I wouldn't have been there to shake hands with the people at Sega and work my way in there, or be invited in. It's just kind of the way it works. But not everyone has those opportunities. Luckily, we're not on an even playing field, even with the online world being the way it is. But it does help level stuff out a little bit, where there's no barrier to entry anymore. All it takes is a matter of sticking it through and letting your audience find you. And sometimes that takes a long time, years, decades even. I was doing webcomics right after I got out of college, and I was living, I can't even say paycheck to paycheck. I don't know how I was living. Like, looking back, I don't know how I paid my rent and I got food, but I do specifically remember like looking at my bills and having a runny nose and thinking, can I afford to buy a box of Kleenex right now? Like, it wasn't a fun time, but I did it because it was no other options. Like, what else do? I have to draw, so I guess I'll just keep drawing until I'm homeless, and that'll be how it works out for me. But I mean, luckily it did work out, but I think that's what separates the people that get somewhere or not is sticking it out for a very, very long time sometimes. It doesn't necessarily matter that you're the best. I'm not the best Sonic artist in the world. I'm not the best anything in the world. I've been around a long time, and I've tried to come through on my promises, and I've tried to conduct my business in a way with integrity, and I'm seeing that in the end is what landed me in certain positions now. If you want to be an artist and you look at other people that are drawing better than you, it's like, that's not really what matters. What matters is that you have a strong sense of character. You promise things to your fans, and you come through on them as best you can, and when you don't, you try and make it right, or at least be honest about it. And over a matter of years, people will stick by you and they'll lift you up. You entertain them for free, and then they lift you up for free on their end too. And eventually someone will spot that this person has a reputation, and they'll invite you in. But at the same time, who knows? There might just be people that work their ass off for, I don't know if I can say, okay. There are people that really work really, really hard for their entire lives, and for whatever reason, it just never happens. And I also think it's really important to consider that that's okay too. Your worth as a human being isn't measured by your ability to make Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons. It's not measured by your ability to create in any way. It's a part of who you are, and if it happens for you, great. But they're the best people in the world I've ever met don't draw pictures. It's just, you can be a successful artist or not, but worry about being like a good person first, and then hopefully that'll pay dividends in the end. And in the meantime, just stick it out as long as you can.
Now, as a Clemson fan, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, that these wonderful people from USC brought you here for something called studio sessions. Is that what it's called, correct?
It's a speaker series at
Speaker
Studio
series,
South.
okay.
USC and Studio South.
So, why come? Like, why, like,
I-
people have probably invited you to a lot of places, but
Yeah.
USC is the place that landed you and got you here.
Because my parents are down here. I mean, like, it's so rare to have the time or the opportunity to come back down south ever, really. So this whole thing, I think, my dad is involved with the speaker series in some way, and they invited me out. It was really just that. Like, I've been invited, lots of places, like you said, but I don't like traveling anymore. I used to love it, and then you get married, and then you get a dog, and then all of a sudden going to the airport is like pulling teeth. And yeah, I don't like really doing it anymore, but my parents aren't going to come out to California, so I'm going to come down here, and I'll come down and see my old stomping grounds. You know, I grew up in Charlotte, but I would come down to Columbia every now and then. I had friends down here, so it's all familiar territory. And again, I haven't been, in the past 10 years, I've been out here maybe once. So
Really?
yeah, so it's good to come
So
back down south.
this is a big deal that you're
Yeah.
coming here.
Yeah.
What do you want the students to get out of when they come to hear you talk?
In my talk, I'm going to, in excruciating detail, go over everything I've done to get to where I am, and that includes a lot of failures. And I want people to see that, and I want people to recognize it, because it's not a straight line, and having a healthy relationship with failure is really, really important. And I hope through me making an ass out of myself on stage, that students can see that, you know, it's a messy road, and they are allowed to make mistakes, and they are allowed to find themselves over a matter of years, and they shouldn't be expected to graduate and land a job at Sega. I didn't, you know, and I hope that inspires them to both be easier on themselves while also being dedicated to making the most of their future.
What's one of your spectacular failures? The one that you're like,
Oh, geez.
oh man, you thought it was, and looking back at it now, you're like, that actually helped me.
This ties into a little bit what I was going on, what maybe seemed like an aside of making good on your promises and stuff, but I ran a Kickstarter for my webcomic, Boxer Hockey, and this was, I want to say it was about 7 or 8 years ago at this point. And I had never printed a book before in my life. I saw other people doing it, thought, boy, that sure must be easy. Free money, here I come. I talked to publishers. To be fair, I did my due diligence. I talked to publishers and got quotes. I found a publisher that gave me the lowest quote by like a wide margin. So that, great, I'm going to go with this printer here. They quoted me at a certain number, and I set my Kickstarter at that number, plus a little for shipping and stuff. Ran the Kickstarter. It went fine. I then took my final numbers that I needed for the publisher back to the publisher and said, great, can I get the books that we talked about? And they said, yes, here's your final quote. And now it was double what they quoted me. And again, going back to talking about living so scarcely that you don't know if you can afford tissues, when someone says now that the quote for your books is in it's 5 digits, like kind of thing, I just caught with my pants down. Like, what do? All these people gave me their money. I've already got the wheel rolling on T-shirts and stuff, so I can't just give it all back already. Plus, Kickstarter takes a cut. There's no way to just refund people. At the point that I found out that the books were going to cost that much, there was no way to just walk the whole thing back. So I just said, I'll do what I can, and I'll just try and pay for it, and I'll just try and keep pushing them out. And what happened was I pushed out about half the orders with no problem. And then for 5 years after that, whenever I could afford it, shipping books isn't cheap. I would ship them out when I can, and it was just a slow trickle. And I got to a point eventually where I said, this is not just painful for me, but this is painful for the people that put their trust in me and gave me this money so that I could hopefully achieve my dream. And it blew up my face. So the only thing I could do in that moment was, well, there are two options when a Kickstarter goes bad. Some people just try and forget it. Some people just say, didn't work out. I'm under no obligation to do anything for you. Like when you pledge money to a Kickstarter, it's not a sale or a purchase of sale or anything like that. It's just hope it works out for you. Here's your money. And some people do that, and that's fine. They're able to do that. For me, this was a group of people that had put their faith in me for years and years up to this point. And I didn't want this following me for the rest of my life, like not just because I feel guilt about it, but I didn't want all these people to not want anything to do with me anymore. These are the people that lifted me up, and I was supposed to give something to them. So I put on a Kickstarter update that said, at this point, if you haven't gotten your book, you can ask me for a refund and I'll pay you back. And so for years after that, whenever I had the money, pay one person back, pay one person back, pay one person back, and it sucked. I mean, it was really, really hard. When you're trying to make comics, in the best of circumstances, it's hard to make a living. And this was like any money that I may have wanted to go to the movies or buy a video game. It's like, I got to pay it back. And, luckily, there are a bunch of people that said, it's $20, forget about it. You tried your best. And that was great. But people were entitled to get it back, and I want to be good on my word when something like that happens. So it almost knocked me out of the business entirely. Like it was really hard to go back to box jockey at all after that, because it hung over, like it hurts my heart to think about not being able to do what I said I was going to do. But at the same time, I tried to do my best to do right by these people that put their faith in me. And if I hadn't, what's going on now with the Sonic stuff, there would be a dialogue of people that said, oh, this guy's so big now, where's my money that you didn't give me back then, right? Because that stuff follows you now. And so looking back, I can think that was really hard, but I made the right decision, right? Because you don't want a trail of failures following you. Like you can learn something from it, but if you hurt people, they don't forget it. You only have one chance to gain someone's trust and then immediately lose it again. So it's something that's happened. Throughout my life, I've made lots of mistakes. You do your best to try and make it right, and hopefully you're paying it forward. But so that was the Kickstarter failure was easily the biggest failure I've ever had. But I learned something from it. I could have walked away from that and learned nothing. But I learned, no matter how hard it is, it's worth it to try and be good by people. Because
Can you laugh at it now?
no, it still hurts.
Really?
It really does. Because again, it's just so many people put their faith in you. And it's so much to ask. Money is really hard to part with, and so many people were like, "I'll take this money." Again, knowing how hard it is to make money, that anyone even thought to give me $1 back then, it meant so much, and it means so much still, that even though the whole thing with the book costs, was an unforeseen risk and something, I should have known when this printer quoted me half of what everyone else is printing, something was up, but you don't know what you don't know. I wouldn't say I'm happy that it happened, but I am grateful for the experience of learning from it. And hopefully I think the only day I'll be able to look back on that and laugh is when I finish that comic and print the books again and give it out. And that may never happen, because it's always just going to be, it's a loose end. But again, I learned as much as a person can learn from that. So.
But that's a good story to impart on college students coming up. Here you are, as successful as you are, and made a name for yourself, that this happened to you. So this has got to be a great lesson to impart on them, for them to see whatever's going on in their life, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it might not, right? All that really matters is that you do your best to conduct yourself with a sense of some sort of honor, and some sort of looking back on the people that put their faith in you did that for a reason. So do right by them. You know, you can screw up. Everyone screws up. Take responsibility for it. And then, yeah, it might work out, it might work not. But the best case scenario or the worst case scenario, if you do right by these people, is that you don't have people hating you for the rest of your life, which is worth it for me, you know, to not have that hanging over my head.
What's some of the things that you want them to get as you do this talk? One of the things that you want to impress upon them that you wish you had gotten, something that now that you're sitting here and you're looking back and you're like, I wish I could have told young Tyson this.
Geez, maybe try more. I don't know. Well, so here's the thing. I just said earlier, I've never applied for a job, right? I never would have gotten in at Sega at all if it wasn't for other people telling me, you should just go do this. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'll go do it, right? There might be 100 more shots I missed because I never took the chance. I don't think very highly of myself. Like, I think I'm okay and I'm adequate and I know I work hard, but I don't put myself out there because I am afraid of the rejection and the failure. Like, when you apply for a job and you don't get it, that stings because someone said you're not good enough, right? And that has stopped me from maybe taking more chances. I can't even think. It's, you know, they're in the past at this point. But there are so many more opportunities available than you think that you might be stopping yourself from, that it does not hurt at all to put yourself out there. The only thing it hurts is your ego if you don't make it. And then that's nothing, you know? So
That's awesome. I mean, that is. Because coming from you, the person that you are and what you've helped create, the fact that you say, I wish I'd have tried more.
yeah,
That's awesome.
taking the risk, you know. Again, like I've done things now, and I've been in places that people didn't even think you could do. Like I don't think anyone thought you could be an in-house animation director at Sega before this. It didn't exist, right? And again, I would not be there if it weren't for certain people lifting me up and recommending me and saying you should try this and go for this. Maybe Mario could do the same thing if someone just gave it a shot, or I mean, any amount of companies, you know, everyone goes up with dreams of I want to work for Squaresoft, I want to work for Nintendo, but so few people ever make it there, not just because it's incredibly hard to make it to that place, but maybe just because they're doubting themselves. And again, if you try and it doesn't work out, so, like, really, like, what's the bad result? You don't get the job that you weren't going to get anyway. It's really, there's no harm ever in trying. So I guess shoot for the moon, maybe, and that's the only thing I can really think. Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed that you said throughout this entire interview is, not just for family over here, is you have a great network, a great support system. How important has that been for you, and how do you build that? Like, you know, the friendships that you talked about, basically these people who helped you and actually believed in you. How do you sustain that? How do you build that? Because that seems to be one of the most key things for you that helped you get to where you are.
I don't know. I don't deserve it. Like, really, I used to think I was a pretty good friend back in high school, and as the older I get so absorbed in work, it's so hard for me to keep my connections. It's like the best I can do to repay these people is just by looking back and remembering what they've done for me. And maybe I've been this person to some other people too, and I just aren't not recognizing it, you know. But people see something in me worth telling someone else about, and then I take that as a vote of confidence that I should maybe go do this thing that they want me to do. I don't know why I have the friends I do, really. Like, I try to be my best. I try to conduct myself from an honorable state, but for the life of me, I don't know. I am very, very lucky to have the friends, the family that I do, and then I try and pay that forward as well. Where since I've been at Sega, I have exclusively hired new artists, people of color, LGBTQ, actually exclusively, without even noticing it. This wasn't like me kind of like doing charity work and anything like that, I hired the best people possible. But what I wanted was new people that had not had the opportunity yet.
Kind of like you had.
Exactly, and that's how you keep the machine running, right? Is like you don't know what someone can achieve until you put them in that position. So these people that I've tried to help lift up, they might not be like best friends for life for me or whatever, but that's the network maybe. Is you try and give people the opportunities that you have been given when you're in the position to do it. But as for how I have the friends and the network I do, couldn't tell you. But just treat people with respect and hope that they treat you back with it, I guess.